it's me, Shaw360, and this is the review for episodes 17 and 18 of Uncontrollably Fond. I can't believe we're almost over with this show. We have one more week and then we're done, and man, if this week was not the most action we've seen on this show since probably week number 1 and 2. So much happened, and I feel like I can summarize pretty decently, but I also want to spend some time just talking about how I feel about the show in general. So I'm going to try to get through my summary fairly quickly, and then I want to talk to you guys about how I feel about the actors, how I feel about the storyline, just my general feels, because there were at least 2 or 3 moments where I wanted to bawl. And so feelings, let's talk about them. So to start with, summary wise, when we left off with episode 16, Jun Young had opened the door for Jungin, and Noel was just watching as he was letting her embrace him. So Jun Young, he kind of ignores Noel because he's got this plan, and I guess at the last minute he remembered what the plan is, and the plan apparently is to seduce Jungin and then convince her to give a confession. So she comes into the apartment and they exchange pleasantries over ramen and tea, and she's kind of like, I've decided you're going to be my man and I want you and I'm falling in love with you. And of course he's like, got him. At the same time that they're having their little get together, Noel's over at Jun Young's mom's place crying about the fact that, he's eating ramen with another woman, because apparently, I heard this on a podcast, inviting someone home to eat ramen is kind of like the American euphemism for, come home to have a nightcap. It's like Bouchick Wow Wow invitation, So I thought that was funny. But also, in another household across town, we've got Jungin's dad, the head of the political party, and he's sitting in the room with all the members of the Choi family, Assemblyman Choi's family, the Jae, the mom, and then the assemblyman. And basically he's there to gloat. He's like, yeah, I'm enjoying your food and your wine. Also, I want to tell you that your family is donezo. Since you're not going to be engaged to my daughter, I'm not going to promote you to secretary, and I'm also going to take away a construction deal that you guys are looking for. By the way, what's the name of the harlot that your son ran away with when he didn't want to be engaged to my daughter? Well, evil mom has always got a card up her sleeve, so she pulls out the, well, why don't you tell us who the man is that your daughter ran off with? And daddy's like, what man? She, of course, has spies out there following Jungin everywhere and has pictures of Jun Young and Jungin together. So even though Jun Young and Jungin haven't really done anything so far, knock, 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 here comes one of the assistants for the head of the political party. Like, hey, you need to come to his office and talk to him. And Jung's like, no, don't go. I'll take care of it with my father. I know you're not going to believe this, but I love you. And it's just like, Jun Young, of course, is thinking, you simple bitch, you don't love me. This is all game. But yeah, she goes back to her daddy's house, and then he gets a call. Jun Young, oh my gosh. Jungin, Jun Young, it's very difficult, the names, so sorry. But Jun Young gets a call from his mother because Noel's at the house drunk, and mom just wants him to, be around her and try to work out whatever's going on with him, because the mom is under the impression that her son has kind of dumped Noel for a better woman, and I guess it puts her back in her place where she was when she was younger, thinking about how Jun Young's dad kind of left her behind for a woman that came from a better family, more educated, more money, that kind of thing. But Jun Young, he's got a plan, and he can't even really share it with his mother because he doesn't want to, I guess, for her to see how devious he can be when he's trying to reach his goal. So he just kind of sits there and watches Noelle sleep. At one point, she's almost about to fall off the bed. Rather than push her back on the bed, he slides up under the edge of the bed and lets her fall on top of him so that he can kind of like hold her in her sleep for a little while. Very, very sweet. Very, very sad. So the next day, Jungin is sitting at a table with her dad, and her dad's like, listen, you could have picked a lot of men out there. You're not going to bring home some trash-ass celebrity. I'm fixing to send your ass back to the United States. And of course she's like, but daddy, I love him. You can't do this to me. And daddy's like, you don't have the way to think sensically, so I'm going to be doing the thinking for the two of us from now on. Well, Jae comes over because, he's bitter Betty and he just can't let anybody win. So he comes over to tell Jungin, hey, Jun Young is using you to get back at my dad because my dad is his dad. So Jungin and Jun Young meet up the very next day, and when they meet up, she's like, I need you to tell me if you're using me. What she doesn't know is that Jitae has talked to Junyoung before Junyoung showed up at the meeting spot for the two of them, which of course evil mom's got her spies out looking as well because she just can't leave nobody alone. Well, the conversation that Jitae and Junyoung had was that Junyoung wanted Jitae to know that this is the plan. I'm going to seduce her and then get the evidence to get Noel's justice. Because Jitae called Junyoung to say, hey, I just busted you out to Jungin. She's not going to like you anymore. I'm taking away all your women. And he's just like, you know what? I'm glad you told me that, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm still going through with my plan. And if you want to thwart my plan, that's fine. You'll just be showing me that the devil is real. But you said that you would try to get justice for Noel. That's what I'm trying to do. If you're real about that talk, then you're going to help me out with this. And it was really interesting because every single time Jitae has come up to Junyoung, he's always come up with very passive hostility. Like, he's never been like, you know, throwing shit in his face or super yelling at him. Well, the one time he did yell at him on the phone. But he's always come across like angry and kind of like, you know, you're no good. You need to give up. You can't have this. You don't deserve that. But Junyoung, for the first time, reaches out to him and is like, you know what? I'm willing to forget all of our beefs. Just make sure you do right by Noel. And I thought that was really classy and really cool of him. So he tells Jungin, he's like, listen, I know that both of us are pawns for the Choi family, and I think that if you and I were to, you know, join forces, we could really do something to get back at these people because they're manipulating the both of us. And Jungin, because she's simple-minded and thinks that she knows better, she's like, yes, I agree. We should collaborate, and then we can get what we want. Nobody can push us around. So he plots that night that they're going to film an engagement scene at his house for his documentary and let that go public. And the idea is that they're going to broadcast the footage to go public. That way, her dad, Jungin's dad, can't send her to the United States. And then if later on the footage comes out about the whole car accident thing or whatever, that maybe there'll be some protections from that. I don't know. I haven't really figured out what she planned to do about that little bit of information. But her and Junyoung are at his house that night getting ready to film this scene. He's, of course, waiting for her to arrive. Who should show up to film the scene? Of course, Noel, because Junyoung is not done with Noel. You know, he's playing more cruel games with her. He tells the PD, I need you to send Noel to film this scene. And at first it seems super cool that he would do something like this until the scene starts to play out. So Noel's asking all these questions like, do you really love her? If you loved her, you'd remember the day y'all fell in love. And, you know, she's like, you can tell that like her feelings are really hurt. But Junyoung, he kind of is like, he's ready for it. He knew what he was doing is cruel. So he like totally nails it home. And it does two things. Number one, it kind of keeps Noel from questioning him any further, you know, about what his motives are and stuff. And also it makes Jungin believe that Junyoung is over Noel and willing to be cruel to her in order to prove his loyalty to Jungin. And by proving his loyalty, hopefully he can get her to open up. So he starts with telling, you know, why he wants to get back at his father. And then he explains the event that caused him to want to get back at his father. And of course, Jungin, she remembers that event very well, so she's kind of shaken at first. She drops the wine glass, goes in the house, washes off her face, and then they're talking, and he's like, and then I did this other thing that made me know better. I killed my girlfriend. And he's talking about a real event with Noel, but of course, you know, Noel didn't die. She just got hurt very badly. So he's talking about that, and she's kind of like, it's okay. People die all the time. You don't need to feel guilty about killing. And that's when, of course, Junyoung's like, so you're not going to confess because you don't even care that you killed somebody? And in kind of prodding her with, I was going to get you to confess, he actually causes her to confess inadvertently that, you know, no matter what you do, there'll be no evidence to tie me to this crime that I committed. So, you know, it's like, it's a sideways confession, but still he got it on tape. And he managed to give all the evidence to Noel so she can eventually, I guess, broadcast it out there somewhere and get the truth to be known. So, I mean, it was an extremely cruel thing that he did, because in getting her to confess that she was the one who killed Noel's father, he also confessed his own role in having Noel hit by that car as he snatched her purse, and also letting her know who his father is, and knowing that this whole time he's known what happened to her dad and what happened with the prosecutor and what happened to her when she got hit by the car. And this is the thing. For the longest time, I've kind of felt like Noelle hasn't really been a player in her own storyline. She's just kind of been this doormat. But I think this was the final betrayal that she needed to kind of be about her business. To kind of be like, fuck it, I'm not going to put up with this bullshit anymore. I'm doing for me what I need to do, and I don't care who I hurt, because I've been hurt too many times by too many people that I trusted and loved. Because there's a moment when she's at the house filming this engagement scene that she tells Jun Young the exact moment she fell in love with him, and it was a moment when he was consoling her little brother for being picked on for not having a mother. And this was way, way before, back when they were all like in high school and stuff. So thinking about that and thinking how long she's been in love with him, and how many chances she gave him even when he kept trying to hurt her, and her knowing that he's dying but still trying to be by his side, this broke her. At this point she's like, fuck it, I don't care what happens to this motherfucker. I'm done with him. I'm done with him. So the next scene that we have, well, this is not the next scene, but this is a scene kind of in line with all that. Earlier that day, the roommate, Nari, I think is her name, she was talking with the girl Haru, who is dating Nojik, which is Noel's little brother. And the girl confessed that her parents own KJ Group. And KJ Group, Nari knows, is the ones that pretty much have been trying to slander Noel and get her in debt, and basically they've been a terror on the family for all this time. So she told Nojik, you need to break up with this girl. And at first Nojik's like, I'm not going to break up with her. But then finally Nari says, I'm going to tell you the exact reason why you need to break up with this girl, and you need to break up with her now. So she tells him the entire story of everything, how the family has sued his sister, how the family is responsible for the cover-up of the father's death, also how the family had threatened to kill him if she didn't leave the country. And of course, him being grandpa brother, he's just like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me know so I could try to help you? And this was probably the moment that this is one of the few moments that I really just was like, I wanted to cry, is when she was explaining to him, I didn't want to tell you all these things because I didn't want you to feel guilty for being happy, because I feel guilty for my happiness all the time, to the point that I can barely breathe, because I think about all these injustices and how I don't have a right to be happy when there's so much wrong in the world. And I thought that was a beautiful moment. And then later on, Nojik breaks up with Haru by telling her that he likes namja, which is guy in Korean. And when he says that, she says to him, namja, that's an ugly name for a girl. Oh, she is so fucking dumb. But yeah, he basically tells her, I'm gay, and she can't take, and she's like, leave me alone, I'm fixing to go on a date with another man. She's upset. And then my little Nojik, he starts crying too, and he starts crying loud in the middle of this cafe. I shouldn't be smiling because it's not funny that he was crying. That actually made me tear up a little bit as well. But, he understands that blood is thicker than water, and even though he may like this girl, and this may be the first romance he's ever really had, at the same time he can't ignore that the family that she comes from has brought him so much pain. And then on a more realistic note, how could they have a future once her family discovers who he is and where he comes from? They can't. There's no winning situation here. So really, it would have been inevitable that they would have had to have broken up once her family found out who he was. So, it just came sooner rather than later. Reality sets in for the kids. So, at this point, Noel's got this evidence, and she's done with Jun Young, and Jitae goes up to her and is like, you need to do this, that, and the other. You need to, basically, he wants to tell her how to run her life. And she basically tells him, you don't need to tell me shit. You and Jun Young and your family and everybody else seems to know everything that's been going on from day one. Well, you know what? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to be involved in any of this. I want you to leave me alone. I want him to leave me alone, and I'm going to do what I have to do to take care of me. And I was just like, yes, bitch, yes. So I was so happy for her. But she did do her share of mourning. When she goes back to home, she spends a few days just kind of like in the bed crying, because she is distraught about the fact that there's no safe place for her to be. There's no soft place for her to land. Everything is wrong with everybody, and she mourns for all these different relationships that have turned into shit. At the same time that's happening, right after Jung-un is confronted by Jun Young with this confession and everything else, and it's revealed that Noelle is the girl who saw her run over the father, all this kind of stuff. She tries to call Jae-tae to help her out, to rescue her, and of course Jae-tae hangs up the phone on her. Well, the very next day, Assemblyman Choi shows up at Jun Young's place, and he's like, listen, you know, you don't need to ever touch anything that belongs to me, and if you do, I'll destroy you. And Jun Young, of course, he's like, try your worst. And what's the worst thing he could do? Frame Jun Young for being a drug addict. And in Korea, drugs is like a serious thing. It's really weird because it seems to me almost like sexual assault and, you know, family drama is not nearly as big a deal as somebody being caught using drugs in Korea. And so this is a big thing that the prosecutor is willing to frame Jun Young about, because he's not going to let everything that he's worked so hard for be destroyed. And Jun Young gets arrested at his house for suspicion of doing drugs, and they've got all these fake witnesses and everything else. And Jun Young's just like laughing because he's like, this is stupid. This is dumb. This is all make-believe. That, and because he knows I'm going to die anyway. You could put me in the pen right now. I'm going to die. It's not going to ruin my future. I have no future at this point. So Assemblyman Choi pulls him out of the jail and is like, you know, I just want to talk to you for a minute and ask you, like, you know, would you be willing to take this bribe and go to the United States with your mother and never come back to Korea? And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I have no reason to do that. Maybe you forgot, but you can't pay me enough money for me to leave the country because I'm rich, bitch. I'm a celebrity. Do you not remember going to my concert, seeing me perform? And, you know, the dad's just kind of like, you know, well, then fine. I'm going to take this thing all the way, which all this time, I've tried to give a little bit of credit to the assemblyman, thinking that, you know, he got caught up in this bad circumstance and he's just done what he had to kind of keep afloat. But now, the more I see, the more I realize that, you know, he has been turned. And all this time when Jun Young was saying he's become a monster, I didn't really see him as a monster before, but for him to set up his own son, the man that he knows is his son, that's monster behavior to me. And I guess at some point or another, he set up in his mind that his allegiance is going to be totally with his wife and his family that he created with his wife. Because at one point he tells his wife that Jun Young is his son. Of course she knew, but she pretended to be shocked. And he says that he's the one who paid his brother to run off Jun Young's mother, which I found that really odd because all this time his wife has been paying off the uncle. And I thought that the father, Assemblyman Choi, didn't find out that he was the father until Jae-tae kind of threw that out there. So I'm confused about that point. I need a little clarification for that. But anyway, he basically, by saying that I ran off Jun Young's mother, he's casting his lot with his evil wife. You know, they're in this together. So after he set up Jun Young and they've had this conversation, Jun Young passes out in the police station, and right after he passes out in the police station, it is revealed to everybody that he has this brain cancer. And it's the news everywhere, and everyone is devastated to find this out because, you know, this is a big deal. This would be as if we were all watching TV and it came across the screen that Drake had brain cancer. We would all be shocked because this is somebody at the height of their popularity. You know, they're in all these different kind of avenues. They're well known. And, you know, it's just like somebody who's young and healthy looking, and that it seems like this shouldn't be happening to them. So, I mean, I totally get why it would have been a news story. It was a news story when they said he was associated with drugs, but this definitely took over the news cycle. So, of course, you know, he hasn't told his mother about this. So his uncle, mom's friend, the uncle, he sees it on TV, and of course he's like, shit, we gotta tell his mom. How are we gonna do this? You know, all the people who work with Jun Young are hearing this news for the first time, and they're kind of like, what do we do? Not because they want to protect their reputation necessarily, but because what can you do? You know, when you're in the entertainment business, you're kind of trained that you can handle just about anything that happens with your client, but death is something that you can't stop. So what can you do? They feel impotent. They feel like they don't have anything that they can do at all. They're just, it's over for them. Even Haru at her house, she's crying. Jae-tae, of course, he's known about Jun Young this whole time, but he kind of springs into action after Dad levels these drug charges, because at this point he's like, okay, I, just like Jun Young, have always believed my father is a good person. He's just been kept up in some bad circumstance. Even to the point that when he was trying to find a way to bring down the family, he would tell his dad that he was doing this as if he thought maybe his dad would give in and do the right thing. That was never going to happen. So near the end of the episode, Jite goes up to the family and says, I need you guys to help me find a way to take you down. And the dad's like, I don't think that there's any way that's going to happen. So he's like, okay, fine, then I guess I'm just going to have to call a press conference. We don't know what he's going to call a press conference for. We have no idea. But either the mom or the dad, one of the two, send a car to tail Jite. I don't know what this car was going to do. I don't know if they planned to kidnap him once he got wherever he was going, or if they were going to try to cause him to have a car accident. Either way it goes, he swerves and does an illegal U-turn to try to get away from this car that's tailing him. And in the process, he manages to get swiped, like T-boned by a garbage truck. And we don't know if he's dead or alive at this point. And then at the very, very end of the episode, we see Jun Young talking to Noel as if they're back in the college days when he was having his crush on her. So, yeah, we're kind of at a standstill here, but the truth is out for everybody pretty much. The only thing that's not out truth-wise is Jung-in being a part of Noel's father's hit-and-run accident. And there is a scene between the two where Jung-in invites Noel to her restaurant again, which I don't know about you, but I'd have never stepped foot in that bitch's place, because the last time Noel was there, she dumped food all over her, yelled at her, called her pathetic, told her she should go die. So she shows up to this restaurant, and Jung-in's like, here, let's have coffee and talk. And she passes over an envelope filled with money. He's like, I'm not saying that I did anything wrong, but I wanted to give you a little something for your heartbreak. Noelle's kind of like, I saw you with my own eyes. You probably heard me screaming when I told you to stop after you drove off from killing my father. And at this point, I'm going to take this money and turn it over to the police to show them that you tried to bribe me. And I have all the footage from when you were over at Jun Young's house. Oh, and another thing, tablecloth yank. Here's all your fucking food back, bitch. I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. It was one of the moments. Episode 18 was the best episode Susie has had this entire drama. She really just woke the fuck up and finally took charge of her destiny, and I'm so happy to see that. I have been waiting for her to finally say, I've had enough. I'm going for broke. I'm not holding anything back. Everyone has to burn. And I'm so happy that she did it in this manner. I can't wait for 19 and 20. I cannot wait. I'm really going to miss this show when it's over, even though it is a slow moving thing. And it's really more about emotion than it is about plot. But it paid off really well in these two episodes. And I can only imagine how it's going to pay off in the last episodes, even though we all know Jun Young's going to die. Now let's talk about my feelings. One of the things that I have to say, and I say it all the time, but I have to say it every time, Woo Bin is giving a first-class performance here, and it really saddens me that more people aren't watching the show and appreciating the show for his performance. Not only is he giving a first-class performance, all of the mothers are doing fantastic jobs in this show, whether for good or for bad. They give you the feelings you're meant to have. I hate Assemblyman Choi's wife. And I hated Jun Young's mother in the beginning of the show. But they've each shown their motivations. And while I still have a lot of hate for Assemblyman Choi's wife, with that hate, I also have an understanding of the position she's in. And then with Jun Young's mother, as we've watched her kind of turn the corner and become less cruel towards her son, I have more sympathy for her too, because I understand where she's coming from. She is the kind of person that grew up in a world that told her not to expect too much. And when she ran into Jun Young's father, he was like a miracle. He was like hitting the lottery on your birthday. I mean, it was an incredible thing for her to come so close contact to somebody who was destined for so much greatness that people in her life were never destined for. And because of that, she's kind of held on to the magic of that meeting. And now that she's older and she's seen how holding on to this false imagery has hurt her child, she's finally turning things around and realizing, hey, my humanity is worth just as much as anybody else who's in a higher socioeconomic level. And I shouldn't have spent my life feeling like I was worthless because of a mistake that we both made. Why was I the one that had to pay for this? And why have I made my son pay for this? And so I've come to like her a lot better. The actor that plays Nojik, I love that kid. I just think he's got such a great face, because as stoic and kind of stone-faced as he is, when he does have an emotion, it plays really well across his face. He uses his eyes really well, and I've just liked him from the very first scene he was in to the very last scene I saw him in. I've just liked him this whole time. I really, really love him. Haru, I still don't like that girl. I still don't like that girl. I don't want her anywhere near my Nojik. Go far, far away. But I feel bad because I feel like in her family, she's the only truly kind of innocent one, if you will. Like, she's the only one who really has no idea about all the mechanics and manipulations and everything else that's been going on. Jitae, on the other hand, though, his is kind of as much of a tragedy as Junyoung's in a way, because I think even though he's known that his family has played these games all along, he's always thought that his father was inherently a good person. And he's operated all this time believing that his father is a good person. At the end of the day, his father is going to do the right thing. And as the series has progressed and he's seen that his father has fallen more and more into the pit of greed and nepotism and self-preservation, that his father's not going to make the right decisions. And he's had to ask himself, what kind of man am I? And once I've decided what kind of man I'm going to be, what am I willing to forfeit to become that kind of man? There have been a lot of points where I've called him very naive and very immature, but that's because he's been operating from the place of a child who still has a lot of admiration for their parents. He's waking up to the fact that parents aren't perfect. They do things that you don't approve of. And rather than trying to find a way to distance himself from his parents and maybe create his own identity, he feels the need to get back at his parents. And he's using Noelle as an excuse, but I think that she is exactly that. She's an excuse. Yes, he may like her a lot, maybe he admires her, but at the same time, I think that she's a catalyst for him just trying to extricate himself from his parents and to preserve his own soul, honestly. Because I think he feels like if he stays associated with them, he's dirtying his own soul. He's messing his own self up. Now with Junyoung, we're near the end. It's just about over. And I don't know what anybody could do to him at this point, because it is just about over. But the fact that, he till the very end has been trying to make things work for Noelle. That his first and last thing on his bucket list was to make sure that she got the justice that she deserved, and that he's tried to make up for the sins that he's committed in the time frame that they've been together. It's admirable, and it sucks because he's only going to get a few moments of kind of this last beautiful time before it's all over. Both him and Noelle will only experience a small amount of the beauty of what could have been their love. I feel like this all could have been resolved way sooner. I really do. I feel like this could have happened way sooner in their lives together. I think when he first became a celebrity, he could have tried to found a way to reach out to Noelle. I hate that it took his death for him to try to do this. But again, I feel that it says a lot for him that here he is dying, and he really could have taken advantage of this and just, been out there completely crazy because he's dying. But instead, he's using his last moments to try to right a wrong from so many years ago. And that says a lot about who he is. And I kind of want Noelle to get pregnant and have his baby before he dies. I know that sounds really bad, but I just want a little piece of Junyoung to still be in this world. If that makes any sense. Like, I just hate that once he's dead, he's gone. He won't have any children to carry on his perfect DNA. He won't have any legacy other than this one piece of justice that he can mete out for Noelle. His mother won't have a child, and at her age, she's probably not going to have any more children. So his death closes the door on so many futures, and that is a thing that breaks my heart and makes me super sad. I also wonder what's going to happen with the Choi family now that Jitae has been hit by this garbage truck. If Jitae dies, how will that affect his mother and the assemblymen? Will they change their ways? Will she decide that she basically sacrificed her son in order to keep this man, in order to keep their lifestyle, in order to pursue this greed? I don't know if they're capable of making any changes. Honestly, they don't seem like the type of people that can. I wonder for the assemblyman, he's losing the son he raised, and he's losing the son that he didn't raise. there is nobody left. All he's got is Haru. And Haru, she's not a lot to work with, to be quite honest with you. So, in trying to preserve his reputation, and trying to preserve his wealth, and trying to preserve his status, after losing both of his sons, will it have been worth it for him? I can't wait to find out what happens. I'm so eagerly awaiting the last show, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. I hope you guys have appreciated the commentary I've been giving you. I really hope that you'll stick with me for the very last review of the show, and I hope that we will continue to review more shows together. I have thought about doing Scarlet Heart, but I haven't quite made up my mind about that. I'm also supposed to be moving soon, so, you know, trying to find time to do these reviews is going to be a problem for me. But I really sincerely hope that we'll be able to continue to do this, because I love doing these reviews with you guys. I love your feedback. I wish I had more of it. And I will talk to you guys on the next review. Bye.